You open your eyes for the first time. The world is a smear of dull greens and oppressive grays, a blurry, cold, and profoundly disappointing panorama. There is no warmth, no gentle cooing, only the incessant, scouring wind of the Pleistocene Americas. A colossal shadow, a mountain of matted fur and indifference, looms over you. This is your mother. Her greeting is a rough, rasping lick from a tongue designed to strip bark from trees. It is not a welcome. It is an abrasive fact of life. The air you breathe is thin and carries the scent of damp earth and distant ice. This is your life. And it will be, from this moment until its final, undignified end, an exercise in futility. Ah, yes. Consciousness flickers to life in nature's most ambitious monument to apathy. Welcome to the stage. Your official designation is Megatherium Americanum. A grand, important-sounding title, full of scientific weight and classical syllables. It means, simply, the great beast from America. But you are known to the world, or what little of it will ever remember you, as the giant ground sloth. Let's break that down. Giant, which is an objective, even charitable, description of your absurd scale. Ground, a helpful clarification that distinguishes you from your pathetically tiny, tree-dwelling cousins of the distant future. And then, the punchline, sloth. A name synonymous with lethargy, with apathy, with one of the 7 deadly sins. It is a title, as we are about to see, that you will not just live up to, but embody with every fiber of your 6-ton being. Your brutal beginning is defined not by a struggle, but by a simple, cosmic inconvenience. You are born the size of a grown man, a clumsy, oversized parcel of life dropped into a world that has no infrastructure to support you. Your nursery is this vast, unforgiving plain. The wind is your lullaby, a constant, mournful howl that promises a long, hard existence. There are no cozy dens here. Hiding is not an option when you are a walking landmark. Your mother, that towering edifice of instinct, will tolerate your presence for a short while. She protects you not from a sense of maternal love, but from a deeply buried biological script. You are a genetic investment, a slow-moving asset she must guard until you are just barely capable of not starving on your own. She will shield you with her immense bulk, her shadow a temporary reprieve from the hungry eyes that are always watching from the tall grasses. She will swing her terrifying, scythe-like claws at anything that gets too close, a gesture less of ferocity and more of profound irritation. Then, one day, the script runs out. Her internal clock, calibrated to the merciless rhythms of survival, simply moves on. She will not look back. She will not offer a parting grunt of encouragement. She will just be there one moment, and gone the next, lumbering off toward a patch of scrubland that has captured her fleeting, minimal attention. You are now alone, a juvenile giant in a world of giant killers. This is not cruelty. Cruelty requires intent, emotion. This is far worse. This is indifference. The universe has simply unsubscribed from your continued existence, leaving you to fend for yourself. Your first lesson is the most important one. You are utterly, completely, and profoundly on your own. It is a terrifyingly lonely education. Your juvenile years are a long, slow-motion tutorial in misery. The world, you quickly learn, is divided into 2 categories: things you can slowly eat, and things that can quickly eat you. The latter category is far more interesting, and far more populated. Your main adversaries are the titans of the Pleistocene, creatures that seem to have been designed by a committee of sadists. There's the short-faced bear, Arctodus simus, a predator that stands taller than you when it rears up, and it possesses the one thing you will never have: speed. It can cover ground with a loping gait that eats up the miles, while your top speed is what a human would consider a leisurely stroll. Then there are the wolves. Not just any wolves. Dire wolves. The name says it all. They are bigger, stronger, and more intelligent than their modern descendants. And they have the deeply unfair advantage of teamwork. They move as one, a flowing river of teeth and hunger. They communicate, they strategize, they probe your defenses. They are everything you are not: fast, coordinated, and clever. They will harry you for miles, nipping at your heels, testing your resolve, waiting for you to make a mistake. And towering over all of them, in reputation if not always in size, is Smilodon fatalis, the saber-toothed cat. It is not a hunter. It is an assassin. A hypercarnivore built for one purpose: to deliver a killing blow. Its iconic, curving canines are not for show. They are precision instruments designed to sever spinal cords and slice through the thickest arteries. It is a creature of ambush and explosive power. While you spend your days in a state of perpetual, low-grade confusion, the Smilodon spends its days waiting, watching, calculating the perfect moment to strike. Against this roster of sleek, efficient killers, what is your survival strategy? It is a pathetic, yet surprisingly effective one. You are simply too much trouble. You are a walking fortress of flesh, bone, and thick, matted hair. Your skin is embedded with thousands of small, bony plates called osteoderms, a kind of internal chainmail that makes biting you a frustrating and tooth-dulling affair. Your primary defense is to be an inconvenient truth. The modern analogy would be an ATM bolted to a concrete slab in the middle of a bank vault. Yes, the money is in there, but is it really worth the effort? When truly threatened, you perform your one-party trick. You rear up on your massive hind legs, using your thick, muscular tail as a third point of contact, a living tripod. You become a tower of fur, 2 stories high, waving your enormous claws in the air. These claws, each as long as a man's forearm, are your primary tools for pulling down branches, but they make for a terrifying visual deterrent. You are not trying to win a fight. You are trying to convince the predator to go find an easier lunch. You are a master of strategic lethargy, weaponizing your own inconvenient design. It's a bluff, but a damned effective one. You are counting on the fact that even a saber tooth has a schedule to keep, and spending all afternoon trying to crack you open is simply not time efficient. Learning the ropes of being you is a curriculum of clumsiness. You are an herbivore, which means you are spared the complex and bloody business of hunting. Your food is stationary. This is a significant advantage. The challenge is not in catching it, but in accessing it. You are a high browser, a specialist in eating the leaves that other, lesser herbivores can only dream of reaching. Your technique is brutish and direct. You walk up to a moderately sized tree, hook your immense claws around its trunk or major limbs, and then simply lean back. Your 6 tons of body weight do the rest. The tree groans, splinters, and is either uprooted entirely or pulled down to your level. You then proceed to leisurely strip it of its foliage, your thick, muscular tongue and simple, peg-like teeth grinding the vegetation into a digestible pulp. Your failures in this endeavor are as massive as you are. You will frequently misjudge the physics of the situation, pulling a multi-ton branch directly down upon your own skull. The impact would kill a lesser creature. For you, it results in a few moments of stunned silence, a brief, dizzying pause in your day as your dim brain tries to reboot. You will shake your head, grunt with what sounds suspiciously like annoyance, and then resume your meal. You are too big and too stupid to be knocked out by your own incompetence. Fighting skills are not so much learned as they are programmed. Your combat style is a slow, telegraphed series of swings. You are a walking trebuchet with a painfully long reset time. Any predator with a basic grasp of object permanence can see your attacks coming minutes in advance. The goal is not to land a blow, but to create a danger zone around yourself, a perimeter of potential, slow-moving harm that a sensible carnivore will choose not to enter. You are less a trained warrior and more a hazardous work environment. Your defensive strategy is, in essence, to be a living, breathing workplace safety violation. And so you reach adulthood. Against all statistical probability, you have survived. You have outgrown the casual predation of your youth. You are now a full-grown megatherium, a titan of the Pleistocene. You weigh more than 3 large cars. You can reach leaves 20 feet off the ground. Your life has improved in the sense that most things now run away from you, rather than towards you. A lone dire wolf is no longer a threat. A saber-tooth will look at your towering form and weigh its options, usually deciding that a smaller, less structurally reinforced meal is a wiser investment. You have reached the top of the herbivorous food chain. You are the undisputed king of eating things that don't move. A profound, almost comatose sense of security settles over you. The world is your buffet. Life is predictable. Life is stable. Life, you might think if you were capable of such complex thoughts, is finally good. And this is the twist. This is nature's cruel joke. Just when you achieve a state of relative safety from the outside world, a new, far more insidious adversary emerges: your own biology. The relentless, soul-crushing burden of procreation. This is a problem far worse than any fanged predator. The new directive, issued from the deepest, most ancient parts of your brain, is to mate. And for a creature like you, this is a logistical and existential nightmare of epic proportions. First, you must find a mate. This is not a simple task. You are a solitary creature by nature. You do not roam in herds. Your species is spread thinly across a vast continent. Finding another of your kind is a monumental undertaking, a quest driven by the vaguest of hormonal urges. It is the Pleistocene equivalent of a blind date, where your potential partner is somewhere in the next state, and you have to walk there. Your search is a slow, ponderous pilgrimage, a journey of hundreds of miles undertaken at a pace that makes continental drift look impulsive. You follow faint, week-old scent markers, driven by an instinct you don't understand towards a creature you have never met. And when you finally find one, the ritual that follows is a spectacle of profound awkwardness. It is a courtship conducted in geological time. There is no elaborate dance, no beautiful song. There is only the clumsy, unenthusiastic maneuvering of two 6-ton objects trying to align themselves correctly. The whole affair is a slow, hazardous, and deeply unromantic process, punctuated by grunts of effort and the occasional splintering of a nearby tree that got in the way. It is a biological imperative, a chore to be completed with as little fanfare as possible. It is less an act of passion and more a feat of biological engineering, a joyless union for the sole purpose of perpetuating a species that seems, at its core, profoundly tired of its own existence. If you are a female, your reward for this colossal effort is months of carrying an ever heavier burden, culminating in the painful and exhausting process of giving birth to an enormous baby. You will then have to endure its clumsy, helpless presence for a short period before the cycle of abandonment completes itself. You are a reluctant link in a pointless chain, a biological mule carrying the genetic code of your species forward for reasons you can never comprehend. The burden of territorial defense is equally absurd. You will defend a patch of land primarily by just being on it. An act of passive-aggressive ownership. It's yours because you're too heavy to move. And so, your peak fades into the long, slow decline. The inevitable decay begins. Old age in a creature of your scale is a special kind of tragedy. Your greatest asset, your size, becomes your most unforgiving enemy. The 6 tons of weight you have carried your whole life begin to exact their price. Your joints, which have borne this incredible burden for decades, begin to ache, then to grind, then to fail. Your movements, already ponderously slow, become glacial. Arthritis, an ailment as old as bones themselves, sets in. Every step is an effort. Rearing up to reach the high branches becomes a painful, sometimes impossible task. Your formidable claws, the symbols of your power, grow brittle. They splinter and crack. Your teeth, the simple, peg-like grinders that have served you so well, are worn down to nubs. Eating, the one simple pleasure and primary occupation of your life, becomes a chore. You are forced to subsist on softer, less nutritious vegetation, the leftovers that younger, healthier sloths ignore. Your status in the silent, unacknowledged hierarchy of your kind plummets. You are not challenged for dominance in a glorious battle. That would be far too dramatic. You are simply ignored, left behind, a fading giant sinking slowly back into the earth. Your final confrontation is not with a young, ambitious rival. It is not a climactic battle for honor or territory. It is with an old enemy, one that has been waiting patiently for this very moment. The dire wolves. The same pack, or the descendants of the one that tested you in your youth, finds you again. But you are not the same. You are old, you are weak, you are slow. So agonizingly slow. When they emerge from the tall grass, their eyes glowing with a cold, intelligent hunger, you can barely muster the energy to face them. You attempt to rear up, your one great defensive maneuver, but a searing pain shoots through your hips. You stagger, catching yourself before you fall, but the moment of vulnerability is all they need. The bluff is over. They are masters of this game. They know you cannot turn quickly. They attack from all sides, a whirlwind of snapping jaws and relentless pressure. You swing a heavy arm, a desperate, sweeping blow that connects with nothing but air. They are too fast, too fluid. It's not a fight. It is a siege. A slow, methodical dismantling of your defenses. They are patient. They will wait for hours, for days if necessary. They are the living embodiment of time, and your time has finally run out. They wear you down, bite by bite, until you are too exhausted to even stand. You collapse onto the cold earth with a ground-shaking thud that is both your final act of defiance and your ultimate admission of defeat. Your end is not glorious. You do not die staring defiantly at the sky. You die with your face in the dirt, the scent of your own blood filling your nostrils, surrounded by the triumphant snarls of creatures a fraction of your size. You, the great beast, the titan of the plains, are reduced to a mountain of meat for lesser beings. Your final contribution to the ecosystem is to become a meal. And just as the light fades from your eyes, as your consciousness dissolves back into the great, indifferent void from which it came, the cycle resets. Miles away, under the same cold, gray sky, a newborn megatherium takes its first breath. A new life begins, destined to walk the same slow, ponderous, and ultimately meaningless path. A new actor steps onto the stage to perform the same tragic, circular play. The story, with its themes of struggle, futility, and eventual consumption, begins anew. So, that was your life. A multi-ton monument to the idea that just because you can survive, doesn't mean there's any point to it. A long, slow, brutal cycle of eating, avoiding being eaten, and then, eventually, being eaten. You'd think that would be enough tragedy for one creature. But you, the giant ground sloth, you were special. You didn't just get the standard issue tragedy of a brutal life cycle. You were unlucky enough to exist at the precise moment a new predator arrived. A predator that wasn't just hungry, but clever and ambitious. And that's when your personal, biological tragedy became a species-wide historical catastrophe, a silent legacy of bone and dust. Welcome back. You thought being eaten by dire wolves was bad. Oh, you sweet, naive mountain of fur. You're about to meet humanity, and they are so much worse. Your first encounter with this new creature is a moment of profound, world-altering confusion. For them, not for you. You barely notice. A band of these new, clever apes, the ones who would later call themselves the Clovis people, crests a ridge. They are small, fragile-looking things, wrapped in the skins of lesser animals. They are hunting, their minds focused on deer or bison. And then they see you. You are reared up on your hind legs, your massive form silhouetted against the sky, leisurely pulling a tree apart as if it were a stalk of celery. In that instant, their world breaks. Their primitive brains, hardwired to categorize things into food, danger, or irrelevant, have no file for you. You are not a beast to be hunted. You are a geological event with claws. You are a walking mountain, a furry, slow-moving god. Their reaction is a primal cocktail of pure, bladder-loosening terror and stunned, superstitious awe. Is this a spirit of the forest? The physical embodiment of a thunderstorm? The great, hairy creator of the world itself? They fall back, whispering, pointing with their spears, their hunt forgotten. For a brief, fleeting moment in history, you are a deity. Your entire identity is being forged in the minds of these shivering, bipedal primates, and you are utterly, blissfully unaware. You are simply trying to get to the tasty leaves at the top. The absurdity is staggering. You have achieved godhood by accident while looking for a snack. But divinity, you will soon learn, has a very short shelf life when your worshippers are hungry. The awe wears off. Fear gives way to curiosity, and curiosity gives way to calculation. They watch you. They are creatures of pattern recognition, and you are a creature of profound, predictable routine. They see you walk the same paths to the same groves of trees every day. They see that your terrifying, godlike power is deployed with the speed and urgency of a melting glacier. They notice your placid, herbivorous nature. You are not a wrathful god. You are a schedule. A very, very large schedule. The idea of worship is a lovely, abstract concept. The reality of a spear point is much more tangible. Being the subject of a cave painting is a form of immortality, I suppose, but it does little to stop a well-aimed projectile. The first organized hunt against you is not an act of courage. It is an act of supreme, calculated opportunism. A few of the braver ones approach, jabbing at your thick hide with their sharpened sticks. You react not with divine fury, but with slow, ponderous annoyance. You might swing a clawed arm in their general direction, a gesture of irritation that they easily sidestep. They learn your weaknesses. They learn that while you are a fortress, you have all the maneuverability of one. They can lead you into narrow canyons where you can't turn around. They can use fire to spook you towards a cliff's edge or a concealed pit. Your divine attributes become vulnerabilities. Your size makes you a bigger target. Your strength is useless without speed. Your thick hide, which can turn the tooth of a wolf, can be pierced by a masterfully crafted Clovis point, a sliver of sharpened flint that will become the instrument of your species' doom. The irony is almost too perfect. They probably prayed to you for a successful hunt, a blessing to kill the very god they were addressing. You were no longer a spirit of the forest. You were a walking pantry with a messiah complex. As their pathetic little settlements begin to dot the landscape, you become more than a target. You become an inconvenience. You do not raid their fields. They barely have any. But you represent the untamed world, the vast, dangerous wilderness they are trying to carve a life out of. You are a symbol of everything that is not them. And so, you are cast as a villain in their foundational myths. When a hunter is accidentally crushed by a tree you were pulling down, it is not a tragic accident. It is a malevolent act by the sloth monster. When they deplete the local game, it is not a consequence of their own rapaciousness. It is your fault for taking up too much space, for consuming too much of the landscape. The injustice is profound. You have existed on this continent for millions of years, a slow, stable part of the ecosystem. You have weathered ice ages, supervolcanoes, and the constant threat of hypercarnivores. You were a feature of the landscape, as permanent as the mountains. They arrive, barely a generation old, and declare themselves the new management. You are declared a pest for the crime of existing in a home that was yours long before their species learned to walk upright. You are being served an eviction notice by tenants who just showed up yesterday, and the eviction is to be carried out with extreme prejudice. What is the ultimate cynical takeaway from this first bloody chapter of your relationship with humanity? It is that being worshipped is simply the prelude to being sacrificed. Being a symbol is just another word for being a target. Your first great legacy, your first contribution to human culture, was to be their ultimate final exam. You were the capstone project for their hunter-gatherer education. By learning to kill you, the largest and most formidable beast in their world, they learned to kill anything. You taught them that nothing was too big, nothing was too sacred. You were the key that unlocked their potential for planetary domination. Your gift to humanity was your own annihilation. You were the ladder they climbed to the top of the food chain, and then kicked away. And now we enter the great age of human expansion. The age of empires, of organized religion, of global commerce. The medieval and early modern world. We see the rise of castles in Europe, the great fleets of Renaissance explorers, the dawn of what they would arrogantly call civilization. And what was your role in this grand new era? What new, systematic misery did they devise for you? What new perception did they have? Were you a tool for their wars? A product for their markets? A bad omen for their superstitious peasants? The answer is the most tragic and most ironic punchline in your entire story. You played no role at all. You were gone. You were so completely, so utterly, so breathtakingly efficient in your extinction at the hands of those first hunters that you were not even a memory. The new, improved, armor-plated humans with their flags and their crosses and their ledger books never even got the chance to exploit you. You were a ghost story they had already forgotten to tell. You had been a beta test for planetary extermination, and the results were a resounding, unequivocal success. Think of the indignities you were spared. As humanity was busy domesticating and subjugating every other large creature on the planet, you were resting in the silent, dreamless sleep of the forever dead. While elephants were being captured, tortured, and trained to be living tanks in the wars of petty kings, you were decomposing peacefully in the soil of the New World. While horses were being bred into unnatural shapes, their spirits broken to carry armored men into pointless battles, your bones were slowly turning to stone. While the great whales were being hunted to the brink of extinction, their bodies rendered into oil to light the homes of merchants and nobles, you were already a fossil. Your new job title in this era was not property or livestock. It was geological stratum. You had been so thoroughly and systematically removed from the face of the earth that you escaped the entire age of systematic misery. You were not an entry in a shipping manifest. You were not a curiosity in a royal menagerie. You were not a monster in a medieval bestiary, because no one who knew how to write had ever seen you. You had achieved the ultimate, tragic invisibility. You were saved from the horrors of servitude by embracing the profound oblivion of total extinction. How did their technological progress impact you? It didn't. Not anymore. They were inventing gunpowder and cannons, firearms that could kill an animal from a distance, removing the last vestiges of risk and courage from the hunt. But you were already bulletproof, safe in your stony grave. They were building ocean-faring ships to cross the globe, bringing slaughter and disease to new lands, initiating new conflicts, and driving other species into the narrowing corners of the world. But you were already gone. You were a casualty of their very first expansion. You were spared the indignity of being shot by a bewigged buffoon from the deck of a rolling ship. The deeply ironic summary of this age is your complete and utter absence from it. Your legacy was silence. For 10,000 years, humanity wrote its histories, fought its wars, and built its empires, entirely unaware that a creature like you had ever existed. Your strength was never used to build their cities. Your beauty was never the reason you were hunted for a king's trophy room. You were so successfully erased that you weren't even a footnote. You were the blank page on which they wrote their own story. Your tragic achievement was to become so completely and profoundly irrelevant that they built their entire world on top of your bones without ever knowing they were there. It is a unique kind of tragedy, to be so thoroughly vanquished that your conquerors forget they ever fought a war against you. And then, after millennia of silence, you are reborn. Not as a creature of flesh and blood, but as an idea. The modern and industrial world arrives. The age of science, of reason, of digging things up and putting them in museums. It starts in a dusty field somewhere in South America. A man who will later be famous, perhaps Georges Cuvier, the father of paleontology, is presented with a collection of enormous, inexplicable bones. They are larger than any elephants. The claw cores are the size of daggers. They are the remnants of a creature that logic dictates cannot possibly have existed. In this new age of science and industry, you are redefined. You are no longer a god, a monster, or even a memory. You are a specimen, a puzzle to be solved, a data point in a revolutionary and terrifying new theory, the theory of extinction. Before your discovery, the prevailing view was that God would never allow one of his creations to simply vanish. Your bones are the definitive, colossal proof that he can, and he does. Or rather, that his newest, most clever creation is more than happy to do it for him. You are resurrected as a scientific curiosity, your bones meticulously cleaned, measured, cataloged, and more often than not, incorrectly assembled in the back rooms of European museums. Your first impression on the modern world is one of sheer scientific shock. You are a monster from a lost world. You become a star attraction in textbooks, a dramatic, ink-drawn skeleton menacing a group of tiny, terrified-looking early humans. Your image is used to sell the wonder of deep time, the thrill of a prehistoric world filled with giants. And then, in the ultimate final indignity, centuries later you will be sanitized, softened, and turned into a cute, clumsy, lisping character in a children's animated movie. Your species' entire tragic history, your brutal life cycle, your catastrophic extinction, is repackaged as a lovable sidekick to sell merchandise and popcorn. You are transformed from a great beast into a plush toy. This, perhaps, is a fate worse than being eaten by wolves. After being replaced by machines and forgotten by history, what is your new purpose? Your final job in this age of sentimental hypocrisy is to inspire guilt. You become a spectacle of loss. You are mounted in the grand halls of natural history museums, your colossal skeleton wired together in a dramatic, snarling pose you never would have held in life. You are the poster child for extinction. Families file past, staring up at your immense frame. Parents read the little plaque at your feet, a brief, sanitized epitaph that talks of ice ages and climate change, usually with a delicate, passing reference to pressure from early human hunters. They murmur things like, "Oh, that's so sad," or "Imagine seeing one of those for real." You exist now to make the descendants of your destroyers feel a fleeting, 30-second pang of intellectual remorse before they move on to the dinosaur exhibit. You are a 3-story tall cautionary tale. Your usefulness is to provide a thin veneer of educational depth and moral gravity to their weekend leisure time. You are a prop in their ongoing narrative of progress and regret. They look at your bones and feel a sense of wonder at what the world has lost, and a quiet, unacknowledged sense of pride in the power of the species that did the losing. Your new job is to be a magnificent, silent accuser, a role you perform perfectly without ever saying a word. Your very existence in their hallowed halls is an indictment, but one they have learned to comfortably ignore. There can be no conservation for you. You are far beyond that. The prison of kindness that other endangered species experience in zoos is a luxury you were never afforded. Your prison is one of steel armatures and carefully controlled humidity. It is the museum display case. It is a comfortable, climate-controlled mausoleum where you are forever trapped behind velvet ropes and panes of glass. You are stripped of everything that made you what you were: life, flesh, movement, purpose, and are instead preserved as an artifact. You are curated, not cared for. Scientists study your bone chemistry to learn about the ancient climate, using you as a prehistoric weather station. They scan your skull to model your brain, making educated guesses about your intelligence, which they usually conclude was not high. You are a resource, no longer for your meat and hide, but for the data locked within your fossilized remains. The tourists, your modern-day worshippers, press their faces against the glass, their cameras flashing. They take pictures of you, this monument to their ancestors' terrifying efficiency. They see a monster, a marvel, a curiosity. They do not see a tragedy. They see an exhibit. You are a permanent installation in the museum of your own annihilation, a collection of bones maintained by the very species that scattered them across a continent 10,000 years ago. The kindness they show you now is the meticulous care an art collector gives to a priceless painting. But you are not art. You are the evidence of a crime scene, and the curator is the great-grandchild of the killer. So what is the ultimate, most profound, and deeply cynical irony of your modern existence? What is the final punchline to your long, silent, one-sided relationship with humanity? It is this: after spending a few thousand years systematically hunting you to the point of complete eradication, and then spending another 10,000 years in blissful, ignorant forgetfulness, they now spend millions of dollars and countless hours to painstakingly piece your bones back together. They light you with dramatic, flattering spotlights. They write academic papers and glowing articles about your magnificence. They charge admission for the privilege of standing in your shadow. You are, in the final analysis, more valuable to them as a tragic story than you ever were as a living, breathing creature. Your extinction has become your primary selling point. Your final legacy, the ultimate truth of your journey from Pleistocene Titan to museum specimen, is that humanity has an unparalleled genius for turning catastrophe into entertainment and atrocity into education. They destroyed you to build their world, and now they use your ghost to decorate its halls. They mourn your passing in the abstract, while celebrating the dominance that your passing enabled. You are the ultimate symbol of their power, a trophy of a war they won so decisively that they forgot it ever happened. Your silent, towering skeleton in the center of their grand museum is not an apology. It is a victory monument. Congratulations. You are a permanent exhibit. The show is over, but the tickets will be sold forever. Your life was a tragedy. Your extinction was a triumph. And your legacy? It's a gift shop. Let's linger on this final, perfect humiliation. The gift shop. Here, your magnificent, tragic form is reduced to a series of marketable products. Your skull, once a formidable fortress of bone, is now a cheap, plastic paperweight manufactured by the million in a factory on the other side of the world. Your mighty claws, which could disembowel a predator or topple a tree, are now novelty back scratchers. Your entire species, a lineage millions of years in the making, has its legacy immortalized as a keychain, a refrigerator magnet, a child's puzzle. They've taken your extinction and turned it into an impulse buy. They sell t-shirts with your cartoon likeness, often accompanied by a witty, ironic phrase like, "I'm not lazy, I'm energy efficient," a cute little witticism that neatly papers over the fact that your entire kind was violently exterminated. This is the final stage of your utility to humanity. First, you were a source of awe. Then, a source of food. Then, a source of data. And now, you are a source of revenue. Your tragedy has been monetized. Your bones draw them into the museum, and your memory ushers them into the retail space. It is a perfectly closed economic loop, a business model built on the foundation of your complete and total absence. Every squeaky toy, every illustrated coffee mug is a final, posthumous insult. It is the act of not only killing you, but then selling souvenirs of the murder weapon to the killer's children. Let's rewind, back to the moments before your undignified end, before the museums and the gift shops. Let's return to the damp earth and the biting wind, to the reality of your decline. Old age was not a gentle fading. It was a slow, deliberate dismantling of everything that made you formidable. The pain in your joints wasn't just an ache. It was a constant, grinding reminder of your own immense gravity. It was the earth itself, pulling you down, reclaiming the minerals and calcium that you had borrowed for so many decades. Each step sent a shockwave of agony through your hips and spine. The simple act of rising from a resting position became a monumental feat of engineering, a slow, groaning process that could take several minutes. You would watch younger sloths perform the feats of your youth with a detached sense of envy. You would see them rear up effortlessly, their massive frames balanced perfectly on that tripod of legs and tail, and pull down a canopy of fresh, green leaves. And you would be left to chew on the tough, bitter bark of the lower trunk, your worn teeth struggling against the woody fiber. The world, which had always been a challenging place, was now actively hostile to your continued presence. The very air seemed colder. The predators, who had once given you a wide berth, now watched you with a renewed, calculating interest. They could smell the weakness on you. It was a scent of decay, of entropy, the unmistakable odor of a fortress whose walls were beginning to crumble from within. You were becoming a ghost long before you died, a fading echo of your former self, haunting the edges of the world that had once been your kingdom. The final confrontation with the wolf pack was the culmination of this slow decay. It was not a battle, for a battle implies a contest. This was an audit. A final, bloody accounting of your life's failures. When the first wolf, the boldest of the pack, darted in and tore a chunk of flesh from your hind leg, the pain was secondary to the surprise. It was the shock of violated sovereignty. For decades, nothing had dared. But now, the spell was broken. The aura of invincibility you had cultivated through sheer, inconvenient size had evaporated. They came at you not with the reckless charge of a lesser predator, but with the cold, patient strategy of a board of directors liquidating a failing asset. You would swing your mighty arms, but it was like trying to fight a swarm of bees with a sledgehammer. Your movements were too slow, too predictable. For every swing you made, they would land a dozen painful, debilitating bites. They were a fluid entity, a single organism with many mouths, flowing around you, constantly moving, constantly testing. They were not aiming for a quick kill. That was not their way with a creature of your size. They were conducting a war of attrition. They were targeting your foundations, your legs, the mighty pillars that held up your Sixton frame. They shredded the muscles, severed the tendons, until your own weight became your executioner. The moment you fell was the moment it was truly over. The ground shook as you hit it, a final, percussive note in the symphony of your demise. You tried to rise, to push yourself up one last time, but your legs would not obey. They were no longer a part of you. They were just mangled appendages of meat and bone. You were beached, a land whale stranded on a sea of grass. And then they were upon you. The end was a frenzy of tearing flesh and breaking bone, a gruesome but efficient process of deconstruction. Your life ended not with a roar of defiance, but with a low, final grunt of exhausted surrender. Let's pivot back again, to that initial meeting with the two-legged predator, the one that would prove so much more effective than the wolves. When those first humans saw you, their fear was not just of your size, but of what you represented. You were the embodiment of the ancient, untamable world. You were nature in its rawest, most imposing form. And their drive to kill you was not just about hunger. It was about conquest. It was about proving to themselves that they could master this new, terrifying continent. Every megatherium they brought down was a victory against the wilderness itself. It was a statement of intent. They were not merely passing through. They were taking over. The cave paintings they made of you were not just acts of worship. They were strategic documents. They were the first field guides, primitive blueprints for your destruction. They would study your form, noting the thick neck, the powerful legs, the location of the vital organs. It was the dawn of applied science, and you were the first subject. The reverence was a mask for a cold, analytical process. They were learning your architecture in order to learn how to tear it down. The transition from God to lunch was not a fall from grace. It was a logical progression. In the human mind, the most profound expression of power over something is to consume it. By eating you, they were not just filling their bellies. They were absorbing your strength, your spirit, your very essence. It was the first and most literal hostile takeover. And the efficiency of it all is the most remarkable part. Over the span of a few thousand years, a blink of an eye in geological time, they managed to completely and utterly erase you from the planet. There were no regulations, no conservation efforts, no second thoughts. It was a relentless, continent-wide campaign of extermination, carried out by scattered bands of hunters armed with nothing more than stone-tipped spears and a terrifyingly effective brain. You were one of the first and most profound casualties of human ingenuity. They simply outthought you. Your evolutionary strategy, perfected over millions of years of dealing with predators who relied on brawn, was no match for a predator that relied on brains. Your fortress of flesh was an open door to an enemy who knew how to pick the lock. This is why your absence in the following ages of human history is so much more poignant. As humanity built its great civilizations, they wrote epics and mythologies filled with fearsome beasts. They imagined dragons, griffins, and hydras. They populated their nightmares with monsters of incredible power and fantastic design. And the entire time, the bones of a real-life monster, a creature far more incredible than any dragon, lay silently beneath their feet. They were inventing monsters because they had killed the real one and then forgotten it ever existed. Imagine a medieval knight, clad in steel, setting out on a quest to slay a mythical griffin. He believes he is the epitome of courage, facing a winged lion of his own imagination. But a few feet beneath the soil his horse treads upon lies your fossilized skull. the remains of a creature that could have flipped his armored destrier over with a lazy swipe of its claws. The irony is so thick it's a geological layer in itself. They feared imaginary beasts while living on the graveyard of a real one. Your tragic legacy in this era is not just one of silence, but one of replacement. You were so thoroughly erased that they had to invent new monsters to be afraid of. Now, let's return to that museum, to your modern resurrection. Let's look closer at the prison of kindnesses. The scientists who study you treat your remains with a kind of sterile reverence. They handle your bones with white gloves, speak of you in hushed, academic tones. They are the morticians of deep time, dutifully tending to your corpse. They see you as a treasure trove of information. By analyzing the isotopic ratios in your fossilized hair, they can tell what you ate and what the climate was like. You, in your death, have become a more reliable narrator of the ancient world than any human text. You are a book written in the language of chemistry. But this scientific intimacy is a cold comfort. It is the curiosity a detective has for a victim. They seek to understand the circumstances of your death, to piece together the narrative of your life. But it is an entirely one-sided relationship. You are an object of study, a thing, no longer a being. The very language they use strips you of your life. You are not you. You are the specimen. Your bones are elements. Your life is a chronology. They have reduced the brutal, vibrant, tragic reality of your existence to a series of charts and graphs. It is the ultimate intellectual victory over you. To not only kill you, but to then define your entire existence in their own terms, on their own turf, long after you are unable to object. They write your biography, and you are not even credited as a co-author. And the public, the tourists who file past your towering form, are complicit in this final act of appropriation. They gaze up at you, and they feel a sense of connection not to you, the animal, but to their own human story. You become a mirror. They see in you the awesome power of the natural world that their ancestors conquered. You are a testament to their own species' success. Your extinction is the silent, unstated proof of their fitness to survive. Your empty eye sockets stare out over galleries filled with the achievements of the species that blinded you. You are the ultimate, before picture in humanity's, after album of planetary dominance. It is the most profound and enduring form of hypocrisy, to mourn the victim while celebrating the victory that their death enabled. Let's dissect the final punchline further. The gift shop is not just an insult. It's a form of colonization. It's the act of planting a flag on your memory. By turning you into a commodity, they complete the process of ownership that began with the first Clovis spear. First they owned your flesh, then they owned your bones, and now they own your story, your very image. Your legacy is no longer your own. It has been copyrighted, trademarked, and licensed for global distribution. You have been assimilated. Think about the sheer, unadulterated hubris of it. A species that existed for a mere few 100,000 years discovers the remains of a lineage that endured for over 30 million years. And their reaction is not one of humility, but of commercial opportunity. The mind that can look at the fossilized remains of a 6-ton mammal, a creature that survived ice ages and super predators, and think, this would make an adorable plush toy, is a mind of breathtaking, terrifying arrogance. It is the mindset of a conqueror so complete in his victory that he can afford to be sentimental about the vanquished, to weep crocodile tears for the fallen enemy whose skull he now uses as a conversation piece. Your entire, sprawling, slow-motion epic, the brutal birth, the clumsy youth, the monotonous adulthood, the pathetic decline, the violent end, the continent-wide extermination, the millennia of forgotten silence, the shocking rediscovery, all of it has been distilled down into a price tag. Your value has been quantified, not in terms of your ecological importance or your evolutionary significance, but in US dollars, in euros, in yen. You are a line item in a museum's annual budget. And perhaps the most cynical truth of all is that this final, commercialized form is the only reason your memory endures at all. Without the museum, without the scientists, without the gift shop, you would have remained buried and forgotten. Your salvation from total oblivion came at the hands of your destroyers. They are your murderers, and they are also your biographers. They are your executioners, and they are also your curators. This is the ultimate paradox of your relationship with humanity. They are the sole keepers of your flame, a flame they themselves extinguished. They hold a memorial service for a victim they killed, and they congratulate themselves on their sensitivity and their historical awareness. You are the silent, skeletal guest of honor at a perpetual banquet celebrating your own demise. You are not just an exhibit. You are the ghost in their machine, a constant, silent reminder of the price of their success. A price they are more than happy to pay, and a story they are more than happy to sell.